For thousands of years, the frozen lands of the northern hemisphere were ruled by giants. Across a sweeping expanse of grasslands stretching from Western Europe to the far reaches of Siberia and into North America, enormous herds moved like slow, living storms across the Ice Age plains. Their footsteps pressed deep into frozen soil, their tusks curved like ivory scythes, and their shaggy coats shimmered with frost under pale northern sunlight. These were the woolly mammoths. Few creatures in Earth's history have captured human imagination as powerfully as these ancient giants. To scientists, they represent one of the most important species ever to shape the Arctic ecosystem. To archaeologists, they are a crucial piece of humanity's early survival story. And to modern geneticists, they may be the first extinct animal humanity ever brings back. Today, in a gleaming laboratory thousands of miles away from the Arctic tundra, researchers are attempting something once considered impossible. They are trying to resurrect the woolly mammoth. The Laboratory of Resurrection. The building stands quietly in Dallas, Texas. Inside its walls lies a 55,000-square-foot laboratory operated by a biotechnology company called Colossal Biosciences. At first glance, the facility resembles any other advanced genetics lab: bright white workspaces, stainless steel benches, humming machines, and rows of computers glowing with streams of data. But the work being done here pushes the boundaries of science further than almost any other project on Earth. Within secure storage units and freezers colder than Antarctic winters lie fragments of genetic code that once belonged to creatures that vanished thousands of years ago. These fragments, tiny strands of ancient DNA recovered from mammoth fossils, are the raw material for one of the most ambitious scientific efforts ever attempted. Over the past several years, Colossal's research teams have assembled more than 50 woolly mammoth genomes, some stretching back over 1.2 million years of evolutionary history. Each genome is like a time capsule. Inside it are instructions for thick fur, curved tusks, fat-storing humps, and blood adapted to survive brutal Arctic cold. These genetic blueprints once built animals capable of thriving in temperatures that could kill most modern species within hours. The company's goal is bold but precise. They are not attempting to recreate an exact woolly mammoth. Instead, scientists aim to modify the DNA of the Asian elephant, the mammoth's closest living relative, until the animal carries the same traits that allowed mammoths to dominate Ice Age environments. If successful, the result would be something extraordinary. A living, breathing mammoth-like elephant capable of surviving in the Arctic. And if Colossal's ambitious timeline holds true, the first embryos carrying these modifications could be created by the year 2028. But to bring a species back from extinction, scientists must first understand how it was lost. Giants of the Mammoth Steppe. The story of the woolly mammoth begins nearly 700,000 years ago. At that time, the northern reaches of Siberia were home to a massive ancestor known as the steppe mammoth. Larger and somewhat less specialized for cold, these early giants roamed across vast grasslands that stretched across continents. Over thousands of generations, one branch of these animals gradually adapted to colder and harsher climates. Their descendants would become the woolly mammoths, one of the most successful cold-adapted megafauna species ever to evolve. From their origins in northeastern Siberia, mammoths spread across an enormous ecosystem known today as the Mammoth Steppe. This ecosystem was unlike anything that exists on Earth today. Instead of the forests that dominate modern northern landscapes, the region was a vast open grassland filled with hardy grasses, flowering plants, sedges, and low shrubs. The climate was cold and dry, but the land was incredibly productive. Herds of grazing animals thrived here: bison, horses, musk oxen, woolly rhinoceroses, and, towering above them all, mammoths. The animals themselves were massive. Adult male woolly mammoths stood about 11 feet tall at the shoulder and could weigh as much as 6 tons. Even by elephant standards, they were giants. But their size was only part of what made them extraordinary. Everything about their bodies was designed to survive cold. A thick double-layered coat covered their bodies. Beneath long guard hairs, some reaching nearly 28 inches in length, lay a dense undercoat that trapped warm air close to the skin. This insulation allowed mammoths to withstand temperatures plunging below -40 degrees Fahrenheit. Beneath their skin was another layer of protection, a thick deposit of fat, sometimes reaching 3 inches deep, acting both as insulation and as an energy reserve during long winters when food became scarce. Many mammoths also carried a distinctive fat hump on their backs, similar to that of a camel. This reserve helped them survive periods when snow buried much of the vegetation they depended on. Yet perhaps the most iconic feature of the mammoth was its tusks. These enormous, spiraling ivory structures could grow up to 15 feet long, curving forward like giant crescents. They were not merely decorative. Mammoths used their tusks like tools. During winter, they swept aside snow to uncover grasses buried beneath the surface. Males also used them during battles for dominance, clashing tusks with rivals in dramatic contests of strength. And beyond combat or feeding, tusks may have served as social signals, visual markers of age, strength, and status within the herd. For scientists, these animals are unusually well understood. Unlike many extinct species known only from fossilized bones, mammoths left behind something rare: frozen bodies. Deep within Siberian permafrost, entire mammoth carcasses have been preserved for tens of thousands of years. Some were discovered with skin, muscle tissue, and even internal organs intact. In certain cases, calves have been found with their trunks, ears, and eye sockets still recognizable. These frozen specimens have given researchers an unprecedented window into the anatomy and biology of an extinct giant. Adaptations for a frozen world. One of the most fascinating discoveries about mammoths involves their ears. Modern elephants living in Africa possess enormous ears, sometimes weighing up to 100 pounds each. These ears act like cooling systems, helping elephants release heat in hot climates. But mammoths lived in an environment where losing heat could be deadly. As a result, their ears evolved to become dramatically smaller. According to research published in Current Biology, woolly mammoth ears measured only about 1 foot across, tiny compared to those of modern elephants. This adaptation follows a biological principle known as Allen's rule, which states that animals living in cold climates tend to evolve shorter appendages in order to conserve heat. Smaller ears meant less surface area for warmth to escape. Nature had reshaped the mammoth's body perfectly for life in the Arctic. Yet physical adaptations were only one part of their story. Like modern elephants, mammoths were deeply social animals. The mammoth family. Elephants today are among the most intelligent and emotionally complex animals on Earth. Evidence suggests mammoths were much the same. Their societies revolved around matriarchal herds, family groups led by older, experienced females. These matriarchs were the keepers of knowledge, migration routes, safe feeding grounds, water sources, and survival strategies passed down through generations. Young females remained with the herd for life. Young males, however, followed a different path. As they approached adolescence, they gradually separated from the group, sometimes forming loose bachelor groups or wandering alone across vast territories. Within the herd, communication was constant. Modern elephants use a wide range of vocalizations, trumpets, rumbles, and even deep infrasonic calls that travel miles through the ground. They also communicate through body language, touch, and subtle gestures. Mammoths likely relied on similar forms of communication. These social bonds were essential for survival. When a matriarch died, something more than an individual was lost. An entire library of cultural knowledge vanished with her. Voices from the ice. In recent years, scientists have uncovered astonishing new clues about mammoth biology. At Stockholm University, researchers studying a remarkably preserved mammoth known as Yucca made an extraordinary discovery. The specimen, which lived around 39,000 years ago, contained traces of RNA, a delicate molecular structure that normally decays rapidly after death. RNA acts as a messenger within living cells, carrying instructions that tell genes when to activate. Recovering RNA from an extinct animal had never been done before. Yet in Yucca's preserved tissues, scientists were able to identify RNA molecules that revealed which genes had been active in the mammoth's body shortly before death. Some were linked to muscle contraction, others to cellular stress responses. Researchers also identified tiny regulatory molecules known as microRNAs, which help control gene activity. For the first time in history, scientists were observing how an extinct animal's genes had functioned while it was still alive. It was like hearing faint echoes of life from tens of thousands of years ago. And these discoveries were only deepening the mystery of the mammoth's disappearance. Architects of an ecosystem. Mammoths were not merely inhabitants of the Ice Age landscape. They were engineers of it. Their constant grazing prevented shrubs and small trees from overtaking the grasslands. Their massive bodies knocked down saplings, trampled vegetation, and opened space for grasses to grow. Their dung spread seeds across vast distances, fertilizing the soil and encouraging plant diversity. In ecological terms, they were a keystone species, organisms whose influence on their environment is far greater than their numbers alone would suggest. Without mammoths and other large grazers, the mammoth steppe began to change. Grasslands gradually gave way to mossy tundra and thick forests. This shift may have had profound consequences for Earth's climate. Some scientists now believe the disappearance of mammoths allowed snow to accumulate more deeply across Arctic landscapes. Without herds of large animals to compact the snow, the ground beneath remained insulated during winter. Warmer ground meant thawing permafrost, the frozen soil that locks away vast quantities of ancient carbon. When permafrost thaws, greenhouse gases such as methane and carbon dioxide are released into the atmosphere. This idea has become one of the central motivations behind modern de-extinction efforts. Colossal Biosciences argues that returning mammoth-like animals to Arctic ecosystems could help restore grasslands, compress snow layers, and slow the thawing of permafrost. If true, resurrecting mammoths might not only bring back an ancient species, it could also help stabilize fragile Arctic environments. But long before modern scientists considered these possibilities, mammoths shared the world with another species whose actions would change their fate forever. Humans.